I've been planning to make a video on this whole entire news story with Darren Osborne, supposedly running over these Muslims in the UK. And I want to go much deeper than that so people have a better idea of the deception and they won't think all the numbers that I put together are just a coincidence. Now let's just take a look here again at Darren Osborne, supposedly responsible for running over these Muslims. And here's the scene here with, of course, a professional photographer, nothing more than basically a staged act in the streets in the UK. Now, again, always with the numbers. As I mentioned many times, it's all about the number 33 and order out of chaos. It's not going to be a coincidence when you see that number 33 associated with this one particular photo of the van that he supposedly used to run over these Muslims. Take a closer look at the license plates. I've been covering the license plates for a very, very long time. It's been catching on with more people on YouTube specifically exposing this. And you have PO64CSF. Okay, a little bit of a closer look. So there's no dispute. And of course, you're going to have your number 33. And for those that visit my channel and think these numbers and this numerology calculator is somehow rigged, what you don't understand, the only thing that is rigged is your news and your reality. You can break down these numbers yourself when it comes to Pythagorean numerology. Not just Pythagorean numerology, also Chaldean, but they mainly use Pythagorean numerology. So you could take all the letters and the numbers and break it down yourself and see this is not some type of trick or some type of manipulation on my part. Okay, like I showed earlier with this one quote from former CIA officer, it is the function of the CIA to keep the world unstable and to propagandize and teach the American people to hate and fear. Not just the American people, the whole world. This is what it's all about with this whole entire psyop with Darren Osborne. Okay, suppose, again, the divide and conquer. They want to divide us each in every way possible. Whites versus blacks, Muslims versus Christians, male against female, Democrats versus Republicans, blue collar versus white collar, you name it. Any which way to divide the masses. Keeps those in power in power. That's what it's all about. And again, another example, as I've shown before with this fake phony news story, using celebrities. As you see here, Aaron Hernandez, supposedly in the prison cell, he drew this all-seeing eye with the unfinished pyramid, wrote the Illuminati in a Bible verse. Okay. Now you take a look here, as I've shown before, at the license plate at a supposed funeral in Bristol, Connecticut, and you look at the license plate closely and you break down the numbers like I showed earlier with Darren Osborne. Okay, L675IL is 33. Okay, this is how they love to code it, and I'm going to get more into more details so people just don't think, well, it's just numbers on a license plate that add up to 33, doesn't really mean anything. In this video presentation, I'm going to go very deep with the numbers. Now, getting back to Darren Osborne's truck or van, as I shown earlier, with the 33. Now, you think this is just a coincidence with this truck, with the 33, when you all add it up with that Pythagorean numerology. Let's take a look at the police vehicle that supposedly brought Darren Osborne to court in Westminster. Okay, of course, he's nothing more than an actor, part of this whole entire hoax. With the license plate, once again, L606EWK. You get the same thing. The vehicle that he supposedly did the damage, and the vehicle bring him to the court. Okay, give me a break. Now here's the vehicle leaving, the van, and you see the sellout media hovering around it as it leaves. And you have the telephone booth as well. And the telephone booth symbolism, as I mentioned before, they love their symbolism in plain sight with all these fabricated news stories. And again, a little bit of a close-up of the vehicle itself. And not only do you have the 33 license plate, police being in numerology as well, being 33. So you have your dual 33s with the license plate, like I showed earlier, and police itself. So you know who owns and controls the police, who created the police, not only in the U.S. but worldwide, not only in the UK, worldwide. And as I showed many times, as Grand Sovereign Commander when it comes to Masonry and the dual 33s. Now getting to Scotland Yard and these Masonic police during this so-called press conference. These are Masonic owned and control, of course. Let's take a listen to this very short clip going back to the 70s from this one presentation I saw online. Take a listen. It's very brief.
Found Scotland Yard a secretive Masonic place.
A secretive Masonic place, and of course it is. Just take a look at the police and you have the Masonic checkerboard and of course the New Scotland Yard sign in the back. Take a look here at some of the details. Like I mentioned, the checkerboard in a Masonic lodge. Again, it's very easy to see when you're awake, and like I mentioned, police being 33 numerology. Now taking a look at this one broadcast I saw online as well, and they had this Jewish man, of course it's Jewish Freemasonry, doing the diamond sign, and diamond is 33 as well. As I've shown before, this is how they communicate with signs and symbols. That simple. Words are for deception, and this is how they operate. Again, the hand signs very clear with the diamond sign. Basically, what it comes down to it, as I shown earlier with the order out of chaos, it's this sign here. You know, the upside down pyramid, the 33 in plain sight when it comes down to it. These are basically two 33s in plain sight with the obvious number and the diamond itself being a 33. Now let's take a look here as well with Angela Merkel doing the basic diamond or 33 hand sign. And again, doing the same and different variations of the diamond sign. And even the Masons tell you how they operate just from this one Masonic encyclopedia. Out of evil comes good. However, and the confusion of tongues gave rise to the ancient practice of Masons conversing without the use of speech. This goes all the way back to Babylon. So this is definitely not something new. Just like Confucius once stated, signs and symbols rule the world, not words nor laws. They tell you how they operate, but people still don't get it. Now, again, how they operate in signs and symbols, how the world's a stage. You look at the opposing George Bush, a Republican, of course, and you have Obama, the liberal, doing the same exact hand sign. Basically on the same side. You see here Ahmadinejad and Bush, supposedly evil dictator in Ahmadinejad, and George Bush, supposedly the good guy. And they're both doing the same exact hand sign. It's very obvious. Here's another example with this collage here. All these politicians doing the same exact thing, from Merkel, to Tony Blair, to Donald Trump, who I'll get into later. You see Hitler, and you see the media, this newsman doing the same exact sign. So it's very obvious to see how it all trickles down from the so-called politicians, even to the media, of course. And it's worldwide. Freemasonry is a worldwide enterprise, with Poroshenko here of Ukraine doing the sign of allegiance right in front of Obama. And to the masses, this means absolutely nothing. Because in the masses' mind, they believe if this meant something, the media would tell them. Well, good luck with that when they're doing the same exact thing. They're not going to give you their secrets. These people are own and control sellouts. They're spoon-fed information, teleprompter readers. Getting back to the whole episode again with Darren Osborne, all the hoaxes and psyops throughout 2017 in England, going back to 322 and the so-called attacks on the Westminster Bridge and everything else going on in England. It all has to do with the Committee of 300, which I'll get into towards the end of the video. But understand, this is not the first Masonic Lodge. This is the first Grand Lodge met in 1717, okay? And here's the Grand Lodge here. Not the first Masonic Lodge. It goes back much further. Okay, here is your first Masonic Lodge from 1599, the Lodge of Edinburgh. Okay, Mary's Chapel. And I believe this is of course, a reference to Mary from the Bible. Nothing more than mockery. Now, let's take a look here at the very first, again, Masonic Lodge in Edinburgh, Scotland. Of course, Scottish Freemasonry was all founded. And it just so happens, Edinburgh, as you see here, the choice they made for this very reason. Edinburgh just so happens to be a 33 name. Okay, not by chance, not by coincidence, obviously. And taking a look above the doorway, again, it's all about signs and symbols. This is the most powerful symbol when it comes to Freemasonry, which is nothing more than Satanism in disguise. It's called the, of course, hexagram within the circle. Just like you putting a hex on people. Okay, this is how the term putting a hex on people when it comes to witchcraft comes from. Now again, the hidden signs and symbols and the meanings. As you see here, when it comes to masonry, once again, you see the laurel wreath, which is not talked about much when it comes to the occult. You see the, of course, again, hexagram, basically two pyramids intertwined as above. So below, you see the square and compass and the G. And a lot of people argue about the G, and they try to narrow it down to one meaning. When it comes to Freemasonry, there's never a single meaning. It's Grand Architect, it is gravity, it is Gnostic. There are multiple meanings for each sign and symbol. Never narrow it down to one. It just causes confusion and debate, which leads you to nowhere. And let's take a look at the wreath itself and what it really symbolizes from Greece and from Rome. Apollo from Greece is represented wearing a laurel wreath on his head. And in Rome, it symbolizes martial victory, of course. And as you see here, Apollo, a statue of Apollo wearing the laurel wreath. And let's take a look here from this Bible verse, where it talks about Apollo, who is the Antichrist, from Revelation 9:11. This is why 9/11 is so important in today's society. And they had a king over them, which is the angel from the bottomless pit, whose name in the Hebrew tongue is Abaddon, but in the Greek tongue hath his name Apollyon, which is Apollo. And one thing I want to mention as well, when it comes to the angel of the bottomless pit, people need to understand there are good and bad angels. Do not confuse this with a good angel in the bottomless pit. Okay, so that just needs to be made clear. Now again, let's take a look here when it comes to Apollo or Apollyon and Helios, basically one and the same. Who does this look like? Looks just like the Statue of Liberty. That's what it is. Basically, the Statue of Liberty is nothing more than a transgender in plain sight. Here's Helios without the garment on. As you can see, a male. Same sun symbolism, both holding the torch. So basically, hidden in plain sight, basically one and the same, being a transgender. Obviously, again, taking a look at Apollo, the statue. This is the Statue of Liberty, so-called Statue of Liberty, which is nothing more than Apollo, of course. Now, getting back to the wreath itself, just to demonstrate how much of an important symbol this is, just take a look, of course, at the UN flag, the UN logo, and the wreath itself around the world. Basically, the flat earth model, hidden in plain sight with, of course, 33 segments wrapped around the wreath. I mean, it's very clear that they don't do things by chance or by coincidence. Everything is 100% by design. I'll get into the flat earth in a little bit, but first let's take a look here at Pope Francis. And you see, people don't see what's right in front of them. They have the dual monitors in plain sight, and you have, of course, the laurel wreath and the 33 with the flat earth symbolism in plain sight. But let's take a look here at Pope Francis' ID card. As you can see, born Jorge Mario Bergoglio, and let's take a look at the name Bergoglio. Just so happens to be a 33 surname. So what you have here, right in plain sight, is your 33, your 33, and your 33. 3 and 3 is, of course, 6, 6, and 6. How clever they are. Everything is in plain sight. And again, with the numbers, the duality and the dual 33s, just like those in the music industry and in Hollywood, as I mentioned many times in the past, with the coded 33 in plain sight. And of course, you see the phoenix itself, representation of course, of this Grand Sovereign Commander with the dual 33s, and the eagle or the phoenix, one in the same. Let's take a closer look. It's very clear to see how they love to put their signs and symbols in plain sight, and how many millions upon millions of people have seen this movie called Full Metal Jacket that was released in 1987 and see this or understand this. Very, very few. Less than 99.9% of the population. Because of course they're not taught Freemasonry in the public school systems. It's not mentioned in the news. So they're not going to know about this. People stick by what they're taught. Anything out of that spectrum is not to be used. It's frowned upon. It's looked down at. This is how they control the masses. Calling you a so-called conspiracy theorist when you're actually seeking the truth and finding the truth by searching for it, not by just listening to what people tell you on the television. Okay, another example here with the dual 33s when it comes to so-called 33 trapped Chilean miners. Same exact 3 miners. Just so happens to be 33. The reason they came up with this whole entire concept, this whole entire fabrication, is around the number 33, of course. Now, getting back on topic with the flat earth, let's take a look at this quote when it comes to the UN flag and the flat earth model being one and the same from, as you see here, Charles K. Johnson of the International Flat Earth Research Society, going way back to July of 1980 edition of Science Digest, where he's quoted as saying, when the UN Charter was drafted in San Francisco, they took the flat earth map as their symbol. Now he's speaking the 100% truth, but one thing needs to be understood. The Flat Earth Society has controlled opposition as well, with Charles K. Johnson being a Mason, no doubt whatsoever, with the name Johnson being a 33 name. They're going to give you some truth, but they mix in lies as well, just like Alex Jones here, who's a so-called truth speaker with the name of Alex Jones being 33. Now, again, with Charles K. Johnson, when it comes to the concept of the flat earth model and the UN logo having 33 segments, let's take a look here at the flat earth being 33 numerology. It doesn't mean flat earth is deception or it's not true. It just means they control both sides of the matrix, as you can see here with Mr. Robert Simon, known as Mr. Blue Marble in his Photoshop Blue Marble, as you can see here. We have no real photos of the so-called ball earth, the blue marble. Why do they decide on the concept of blue marble? Because blue marble just so happens to be 33. So this is how they control both sides of the matrix. These so-called truth speakers, they give you some truth, but they're also controlled. They control the opposition as well. That's what it all comes down to. And also, find it very interesting with Charles Johnson having that 33 surname, and you have Mr. Blue Marble, Robert Simon, with his first name being a 33 name as well. How they put this all together and spotlight certain people in the matrix. Unbelievable. Now, getting back to the signs and symbols aspects once again, and that's getting back to the G. Like I said earlier, it's not just one meaning. And one meaning that I mentioned before, not in this video, but I mentioned it before, one other hidden meaning for the G itself in the alphabet, A through Z, 1 through 26. G is 7, but also when you flip over the alphabet once again, the G comes around again to be a 33. So your G being a 33, just like Golden Gate, the Golden Gate Bridge, GG for 33, and many people in society that are propped up, such as Gabby Giffords, with the dual GG name for your dual 33s as well. And also, one thing I want to mention when it comes to the duality, with the G being a 33, just like the name of Nimrod or Baal, not just a single name, he goes by multiple names. This is how they do it. Not just one name, not just one meaning. And the 33, for those that don't know, it's a biblical reference from Revelation, where the third or 33% represents the fallen angel bloodline, as again mentioned in Revelation 12, verses 3 through 9. Now getting back to the flat earth, the whole entire concept of the signs and symbols, which many people have not talked about, the true meaning of the square and compass with the G or the 33 in the center. Square and compass, this is biblical. They love to mock God. Where it states here in Job 26:10, he hath compassed the waters with bounds. There's ends to the waters until the day and the night come to an end. This is what you see here as I demonstrated before with the magnetic north. In every which way direction you go is basically south. And the magnetic north controls the sun and the moon as they circle above the flat earth like a clock. That's why you have the sun set in the west and rise in the east for everybody in this world. The sun is not 93 million miles away. The moon is not 238,000 miles away. They're all within Earth's atmosphere, basically. And you really believe the sun is 93 million miles away in space with no oxygen, but somehow the sun is burning? Absolutely not. This is the world we live in under the firmament, as stated in the Bible. And just like I showed earlier from the Bible verse, Job 26:10, where it states, he hath compassed the waters with bounds where there are ends. Now let's take a look here at Job 37:18, where it states, hast thou with him spread out the sky, which is strong, and as molten looking glass. So this is what you have here, okay? your firmament, and as it states in the Bible as well, in the very beginning, in the creation of the Bible, from Genesis 1:14, and God said, let there be lights in the firmament of the heaven to divide the day from the night, and let them be for signs and for seasons. So clearly, like it says here, lights in the firmament. So you have are, and one thing I want to mention as well, planets are not mentioned. Planets are nothing more than wandering stars within the firmament. And also asteroids, meteors, they're basically nothing more than fallen stars within the firmament as well. Nothing, no Halley's Comet, all that is nothing more than nonsense. Try to find a video on the actual Halley's Comet. It doesn't exist, because Halley's Comet doesn't exist. It's that simple. Now, let's take a look here at concepts when I talk about truth in movies and lies in the news. This is the world of duality and opposites when it comes to Freemasonry, with the movie titled Inner Space from back in the 80s. That's all we have is Inner Space. And the song from the Red Hot Chili Peppers as well, space may be the final frontier, but it's made in a Hollywood basement. And of course, the masses are not going to understand this. They're not going to take it seriously, because it's coming from, the entertainment field, so-called entertainment field, where people do not take seriously. But just take a look here at this launch from so-called space shuttle launch. The space shuttles are nothing more than airplanes. I'm not saying they don't launch a rocket into the sky, but it definitely does not go into space. It does not go into so-called low Earth orbit. All it does is crash into the ocean. This is why they have these launches off the coastlines, where these so-called space launches go straight in the ocean. Now, let's take a look at NASA's official website, like I showed before in previous videos, where they talk about space shuttles supposedly coming back from space into Earth's atmosphere, where they act as a glider. They have absolutely no jet fuel. Now let's take a look here. Can you imagine this so-called space shuttle, which is nothing more than an airplane, falling out of the sky with these small wings to come in for a landing? Absolutely no way. It'd fall out of the sky like a rock. And to demonstrate, like I have many times in the past, with this space shuttle coming in for a landing, clearly this is no glider. You can hear the engines, and you can just see how it's coming in. Absolutely no way is this a glider. Take a look. And they have the chaser planes come in as well.
There's a shuttle.
And you hear the Doppler effect taking place. Absolutely no way is that a glider. That is an airplane coming in for a landing. All they do is, basically, what it comes down to it is, they show the launch on TV, and again, just goes into the ocean. The whole entire, basically nothing more than expensive firework, go into the ocean. And then weeks later or months later, they show the space shuttle, which is nothing more than an airplane coming for a landing. Just edited just like a movie. It's clear as day. So again, the Doppler effect. Without a shove it down. They also have the chaser planes come in to basically, when you hear the jet engines, they're going to say, oh, you're hearing the chaser plane, when it's obviously you hear the so-called space shuttle. Again, that's nothing more than an airplane. Now, getting back the whole entire concept of the flat Earth itself, like I mentioned earlier, how the sun and the moon are much closer. They work like a clock circling above the flat Earth. And like I said before, when it comes to Freemasonry and duality, when they tell us the sun is 93 million miles away and very large, it's actually the exact opposite, where it's much closer and much smaller. The same exact thing with the moon. And one thing I want to mention is people talk about the tides. It's very simple. As again, the sun and the moon revolve around the flat Earth, basically controls the tides as well. Okay, this is what all comes down to. When you take a look here, this ridiculous ball Earth we've all been spoon-fed, and somehow this magical force that has not been proven, called gravity, creating these tides in this fashion. And how you have, as an example, how people have fallen for these lies of a ship such as you see here, National Geographic ship, supposedly in Antarctica. Do you really believe this multi-ton, 100-ton ship is anchored on the bottom of this ball? Absolutely no way. But then again, just like famous Freemason, the founder of the Bavarian Illuminati, once stated, "O mortal man, is there anything you cannot be made to believe?" He's talking about believing that we live on a spinning ball, traveling at 1,100 miles an hour at the so-called equator, while traveling around the sun at nearly 70,000 miles an hour. We don't feel it, we don't sense it, because it does not happen. That simple. And talk about deceptions when it comes to Masonry, and again with Adam Weishaupt in this quote, Another famous Mason, Walter Scott. Oh, what a tangled web we weave when we first practice to deceive. And the name Walter Scott, one of these hoaxes, one of these saps from the past. When you see here, Walter Scott, supposedly shot by a 33-year-old officer, police officer, Michael Slager. And obviously this actor was picked out based on the deception, like I mentioned with this quote from the actual Walter Scott and this bogus, phony baloney victim. Give me a break. Now, more on the world matrix. Basically, when it comes down to it, people want to talk about who runs this world. Is it the Jews? Is it Rome? Is it London? When I always said it many times, people can fight all they want over who's controlling this world, but it's basically by a committee. But it all started off, when it all comes down to it, going back to Nimrod and Baal with all these numerous names. I find some of these names, by the way, interesting, with Baal and Bel, Cronus, Tammuz, very interesting, Zeus, and of course Baal or Nimrod is mentioned in the Bible. And what does this, again, Masonic encyclopedia have to say about Baal or Nimrod in this quiz book? Who was Nimrod? The answer, one of the founders of Masonry. Nimrod was a Mason himself. So this is all going back to biblical times, and this cannot be disputed. And it also cannot be disputed where the Bible states from Revelation 2:9, I know thy works, and tribulation, and poverty, but thou art rich, and I know the blasphemy of them which say they are Jews, and they are not, but they are the synagogue of Satan. Just like this book cover with the hexagram, which is used, of course, as the Israeli flag, and as you see here when it comes to Masonry. So when it comes down to it, it's all by committee. Once again, Jewish Freemasonry, you have again the Roman or Greek wreath as well when it comes to the Roman meaning of victory. And as I mentioned before as well with the UN logo, the UN flag having the wreath as well. And the connection is obvious with the Vatican and Rome. You have the Pope doing the Masonic hand sign. It's kind of hard to see, but definitely doing the Masonic sign. And you see Prince Philip, and you see Queen Elizabeth. The reason she was named Queen Elizabeth, of course, with Queen Elizabeth being basically Queen 33, what it all comes down to. In this photo as well, many have seen this, with Queen Elizabeth wearing the red and the nurse wearing the blue. And of course, Freemasonry is all about duality. They are known as the Blue Bloods. While she's wearing the red, the nurse is wearing the blue. And of course, you get your red and blue that equals purple. And purple is all about royalty and witchcraft. All, again, by design. Now, let's take a look here at Prince William. And you see his squadron, William Wales. And you have the 115-115. It's 5 and 1-1 is 7 and 7. So you have your dual 7-7s with the goat or Baphomet in the middle. I'll get a little bit of a little look here with Baphomet or the goat of Mendez. In this squadron, 60-60. Actually, in numerology, the zeros mean nothing, so you have your 66. And of course, like I mentioned earlier, William Wales, you get your WW. Turn the two W's sideways for your 33. And here is Baphomet himself. And the connection with George Bush. And also the 77. And also Baphomet on the cap. As you can see here as well with Queen Elizabeth and Lady Gaga. And look at everybody in the background. I find it very interesting with the patch. Basically the 3 on each side for your 33. And also I noticed the hats. What I want to get into when it comes to Satanism is the broken pentagram. Basically they are stars that were thrown to earth. And this is why they're broken pentagrams. They are the fallen angels. Just like you see here with the Houston Astros. And I'll get into the cult of Houston. I've covered Houston many, many times in the past. But again, the broken pentagram with Houston. Now let's take a look at this quote by former famous Freemason Manly P. Hall. The broken pentagram is used by black magicians to conjure demons in order to control them for their selfish desires. And this is a quote. The Masons have all the quotes you see in the public eye. It is said that wisdom lies not in seeing things, but seeing through things. And this is absolute truth. Unfortunately, being told by a Mason in Manly P. Hall. But definitely they tell us the truth in plain sight. And also, when you see Washington, the Capitol, and you see the street design, which is nothing more than a broken pentagram, where one side, one area of the streets do not basically converge. Now getting back to the Houston Astros logo, again with the broken pentagram in plain sight. Let's take a look here as well when it comes to the occult. When it comes to Lockheed Martin, also the broken pentagram. But again, when it comes to Freemasonry, it's not just one meaning. What you have here are two vector symbols or two chevrons. Let's take a look here. As you see here in Russia, it's called the Mir space station. It was called the Mir, supposed space station. It never was in space. And Mir has duality meanings. In Russian, Mir means world. It also means peace. Just like you see here with this concert from a Super Bowl halftime show with Madonna, and they have world peace, which again in Russia is one of the same with world and peace. And again, taking a look at the logo with the two chevron or vector symbols, with chevron being your dual 33. So they're very clever how they operate. Broken pentagram and also two chevrons in plain sight. So it's very important to see beyond the obvious symbol of the broken pentagram by itself. Now, again, getting back to this cosmonauts so-called space uniform. You even see the zippers. Like, these zippers are airtight. What is going on here? Give me a complete break. Now, also, again, you take a look here, a closer look at this one patch. And it's the same thing. It's just the opposite of the Lockheed Martin logo, where you have, again, the two vectors or the broken pentagram. It's an opposite. This is supposedly the Americans, the good guys, versus Russia, the bad guys. And again, it's reversed, the two vectors and the duality. Good, it's supposedly good versus evil when they're all one and the same working together. And again, the vectors, which are chevrons, which are your dual 33s in plain sight. Now, getting back to Houston. I'm jumping around here a lot, but it's all about connecting all the pieces together with the Astrodome and the whole entire concept of the world we live in with the glass ceiling of the Astrodome. Okay, this is going back to this Bible verse that I showed earlier with the sky, which is strong as a molten looking glass. This is obviously a biblical concept, the first dome stadium in the world. And taking a look inside, where you see the rainbow in the upper deck. Of course, a rainbow has an arch because it's a reflection of the dome above us. And the whole baseball diamond when it comes to Freemasonry as well. Let's take a look here at the ceiling. The glass ceiling, as you see here as well. And when it comes down to it, I'm going to get into the sun and the moon and your rainbow dome symbolism when it comes to Freemasonry. Get into that in a little bit. And also, when they hit a home run, when they used to hit a home run in the Astrodome, they used to have this projection, not projection, but the scoreboard with the ball, the home run ball going through the dome itself. More mockery. Just like the Sky Dome in Toronto, Canada, you see the sun within the D of the dome. And it's all about mockery again when it comes to the music industry in Hollywood. In this case, the music industry with this controlled band called Oasis, where they show the dome or the firmament. And it says here underneath, don't believe the truth. And like I said it many times, these so-called artists in the music industry are nothing more than puppets. They are given lyrics, they're given these concepts as a form of mockery. Now, getting back to the Astrodome. And again, the whole entire concept with everything, which basically in this world is a Masonic construction. You see this one book by Christopher Murphy, Brothers of the Diamond, Freemasonry and Professional Baseball. And again, here's your reef and the whole concept with the G for the 33 in the middle. Take a look here where you see this old rendition, this old concept of the baseball field, the angels in the outfield, the baseball diamond, the sun and the moon, which in a literal baseball field, as you see here, basically here and here. Let me actually go here. You can see a little bit better. The sun and the moon symbolism. And again, the square and the compass. Here you see the compass itself, just like you see here. I mean, they put their symbols all in plain sight. And millions upon millions of fans of these sports have no idea, because they don't know anything about Masonry. It's meant for the so-called enlightened ones that know all about this stuff. And again, the reason they call it a baseball diamond, because diamond is 33. Not just when it comes to pro baseball, who the inventor himself, as you see Doubleday here, General Doubleday fathered baseball 100 years ago. This cover from Newsweek from 1939. You have your dual 33s in plain sight as well, with Doubleday being 33 and Newsweek itself as well. All these concepts, unbelievable. And as for anybody that has doubts, he was a Mason without a shadow of a doubt. You see the tombstone, which is basically an obelisk. And of course, not just baseball, but all sports. When it comes to the Indy 500 and 33 cars, 311 as they're lined up for the race. When it comes to football, and you have this ritual during the Super Bowl from a few years back with the 49ers versus the Ravens, and they had a power outage for 33 minutes. Basically, their way of saying we own and control everything. We're going to stop this for millions upon millions of people and tell them we are under control. We own it all. When it comes to these bogus news stories, I'll get back to Darren Osborne and the coded license plates towards the end of the video, where it's all going to be relevant, so people don't think that's just a coincidence once again with the license plates being 33. Going back in time with Timothy McVeigh supposedly being executed on June 11th. June is the 6th month of the year. You get your 6 times 11, you get your 66. And of course, the age of 33 years old as well. You have these, again, these news stories where people believe it because they see a building blown up, but all it was nothing more than a controlled demolition. And you have crisis actors portraying victims. Just take a look at this guy's face. Look at the amount of so-called blood on this man. And it's completely ridiculous. It looks like a scene from a movie, but that's all it is. Nothing more than a movie. TV news is nothing more than a movie passed off as real. Doesn't mean real things don't happen in this world. But when something is spotlighted, you know it's their production. Just like in LAX a few years back, with the supposed TSA officer who supposedly bled to death for 33 minutes. Like someone had a stopwatch and stood over his bleeding body and counted down to 33 minutes. Give me a break once again. Now, more actors in the game of the world stage here with Bill Gates. And Bill Gates talking about the prediction of 33 million to die in a global pandemic. There's two lies. This lie and the global. I'd love to say global, like the so-called global elite. The same ones that made atheists believe that we live on a spinning ball and that we came from monkeys. Just like this quote I showed earlier from Adam Weizhoff, "O mortal man, is there anything you cannot be made to believe?" Control the media, you control the minds, you control the textbooks, you control the minds as well. And they control it all from the very start. That's why people believe what they believe. And you try to tell them the truth, they're not interested in the truth. They're interested in preserving their false reality. Just like when Bill Gates retired after 33 years. And just like so many others love to code that number 33, just like, as you see here, Steve Jobs. For the past 33 years, I have looked in the mirror every morning and asked myself if today were my last day of life. They love that number 33, of course, and they love the mirror reflection. This is all about duality. And take a look here, or I should say take a listen to David Letterman during his very last episode and what he says. They think they're very clever, and they have a lot of people fooled, and it'll go over the millions upon millions of people's heads that have watched this show over the years. Take a listen.
Well, here's some statistics. Paul and I have been doing this show 33 years, and that's 6,028 shows. It's a lot of shows.
Now watch this. Watch what he does after he mentions how he had this show for 33 years. Puts his hand in his coat, acts like he's adjusting it, but it all has to do with masonry. As you can see here, signs off after 33 years on air, and how they love to mock. And again, the millions upon millions of people have no understanding. They'll think it doesn't mean anything. He's just putting his hand in his coat, adjusting his coat. Absolutely not. After he mentions 33. So it all comes down to it. When it comes to masonry, the sign of the master of the second veil, or the sign of allegiance when it comes to masonry. You'll see Masons do this throughout history. as you see here with Pope Francis once again. Stalin. It is very obvious. Going back in time with this very old photo with these skull and bones Freemasons. You have the one Mason doing the hidden hand as well. And they have their puppets do it. Doesn't mean they're Masons per se. They're instructed to do this with the Beatles here in this one photo. They're all sellouts, just doing what they're told. That's what it all comes down to. Now getting back to Bill Gates, like I showed earlier, in all these 33s, just take a look at his logo with Microsoft and the hidden 33 in plain sight with the window frame. Okay? And Bill Gates just so happened to be a 33 names. Certain people get propped up, obviously, due to their names. Not just based on talent alone, but combine the names and talent and the willingness to sell out. And talking about how they love to code their news stories or fabricate their news stories. The supposed shooting in Dallas, Texas. 11 officers shot and 4 killed. This is your 11 times 4 is your 44. 44. Basically, a 4 is a D when it comes to the alphabet. In this case, with Pythagorean numerology, a 4 is a D, and the D and D or 44. 44 is about death and destruction. That's why they love their duality numbers, specifically 33 and 44. They love all their duality numbers, 66, 55, 99, and so forth. So you have your 44 in plain sight, and you also have your coded 33 right in plain sight as well. Very clever in how they operate. And also in Dallas, Texas, which I'll get into more later. Dallas, Texas numerology is 33. Ishmael de Jesus, in the mockery of Christ with the name Jesus in the person that captured this footage. And this was distributed on CNN. Now, talking about names and people making it to the top of this world, just like I mentioned with Bill Gates and their obsession with the number 33. Take a look here, going back in time with Albert Pike, founder of the KKK, former Southern general, and currently has a statue in Washington, D.C. As you can see here, with the shield and the number 33 in plain sight, with the pyramid and the phoenix, the double-headed phoenix or eagle. Just so happens to have a 33 name as well. Not by chance, not by coincidence, for all you coincidence theorists out there. And of course, the founder of the KKK, the reason they changed the C to a K is to get your 11, 11, 11 for 33. Always coded. And here's another example of today. Masons in Hollywood. You have here Matt Groening doing the Eye of Illumination, holding the glasses, the 33-cent store. And Bart Simpson holding the money in front of the 9 in the 11, New York. This is from 1997. Just like you see here with the Curious George and the Ebola virus, both from 1997. And you see here, who do you see? Mr. Burns, who just so happens to be 33 numerology. It's getting to be ridiculous, I know, but this is how obsessed they are with that number. Just like I mentioned with the so-called Ebola virus, it doesn't mean Ebola is a hoax, but the pandemic, supposed, what went down a few years ago, was nothing more than a scare. You control the masses, you control them completely with trauma-based mind control. And they always code it as a form of mockery with all the supposed American victims, 33 years old each. Give me a complete break with that. Now, let's take a look here as well when it comes to The Simpsons with Bart Simpson, Homer Simpson. Just so happens Simpson is a 33 name. Just like you had the bogus O.J. Simpson trial, which is nothing more than a divide and conquer news story. And then you had the later, 13 years later, where supposedly he was in prison for stealing back his own merchandise. And he was sentenced to 33 years in prison. And take a look here. You have 3 OJs here. And OJ, of course, for orange, and orange is 33. You get your 33, 33, and 33. You get your 6, 6, and 6. How they code everything in plain sight. Just like with 9/11, with the tower construction starting in 1968, and of course coming down in 2001, exactly 33 years. And the so-called pilot, well, there was no pilot, of course, with Mohammed Atta being 33 years old, supposedly crashing into the North Tower. What happened in 9/11, like I mentioned many times, was nothing more than a controlled demolition with a fantasy story wrapped around. You can check my other videos for more details on 9/11. You see here also, just like with Donald Trump, as you see here with this commercial, this mattress commercial with these sheep and the 9/11 in plain sight. And Donald Trump himself, his family surname, going back in time, was Drumpf. And Drumpf just so happens to be 33. So you have Drumpf with Trump, and I'll get into Clinton later on, and how it all connects. And talking about more 33 names, like I mentioned earlier with Queen Elizabeth being 33, you have David Cameron. Cameron just so happens to be a 33 name as well. So you have your two 33s shaking hands. Looks like a Masonic handshake, of course, as well. And, of course, the very famous film director, James Cameron, doing a very Masonic hand pose, as you can see. And they're all in the know, being Masons at the very top. I'm not talking about lower level Masons at your local lodge. I'm talking about the very highest of the high Masons. They know 9/11 is going to take place well before it happens. Back in 1991 with Terminator 2 Judgment Day and Caution 9/11. And if you don't think he's a Mason, just take a look here at one of his movies going back to 1986 called Aliens. And one of the characters is wearing a Masonic ring in plain sight. Now getting back to OJ, like I mentioned before, being basically a dual 33 name, with OJ for Orange being 33 and Simpson being 33, serving 33 years supposedly in prison, not spending a day in prison whatsoever, just an actor on the world stage. Here he is in the courtroom with a big smile on his face, and the masses will never, ever understand this. They will never get it. They'll always ask, why would they fake this? Why? When they don't understand there is a method to the madness. It's about divide and conquer. When this whole OJ psyop went down back in the 90s, with the whole supposed murder of Nicole, it divided the country 50-50. And that is the purpose for all those that ask why they would fabricate a murder story with O.J. Simpson. It's that simple. Now, one thing I want to explain as well, again, when it comes to these numbers, people are like, I don't understand these numbers. How is this calculator, once again, is it rigged? You can do the numbers yourself. It's very simple. With Simpson, the S being a 1, the I, the M, the P, the S-O-N, you can add it up yourself. You can do this by hand. I'm just using the calculator to make it simple. Just saving time so I don't have to go through and break each one down one by one. It's that simple. Now, getting back to more fake news stories. Just like this one here. Completely ridiculous. Death row inmate eats an entire Bible as his last meal. And he's 33 years old. I mean, this is completely ridiculous. People buy it. People say, why would they lie? I don't see a reason why they would lie and make this up. This is the lie system where everything's a lie that's presented on TV. Real things happen, but they only prop up their fake fabricated news stories. The stories that get 24/7 coverage, you know it's their fabrication. Sometimes a story won't get 24/7 coverage and it'll be fabricated as well. It's just the way they operate. These are sick, twisted psychopaths that love to play with the masses like they are children. Now, getting back on topic with the flat earth and the occult of Houston, I had a conversation with a friend on Facebook named Tom, and he reminded me about this. I saw this movie back in the early 80s. It was released in the 70s called Logan's Run. Just take a look at the whole entire concept, and what do you see? You see the dome symbolism and the rainbow. Let's take a look at this brief clip from Logan's Run, the actual movie, where again the concept of truth in movies and lies news. Take a look.
You are authorized to penetrate city seals and search outside the dome.
Search outside the dome. Well, they show the number 33 and a third, basically. 33 and a third. And let's play this one last time.
You are authorized to penetrate city seals and search outside the dome.
See? Question, what see? Outside? Well, there's nothing else?
You will find sanctuary and destroy.
Sanctuary outside the dome. And it reminds me of this TV show mini-series called V for Visitors about alien invaders, where you have the supreme leader, Diana. And what do you see in plain sight with the dome? Let's get a little bit of a closer look. As I shown many times before, the sun and the moon within the firmament and you see the circular motion inside. It's very, very obvious for those that have eyes to see. Now, getting back to the occult of Houston, which I discussed earlier in the video, and the name Houston, where it derives from, it basically comes from Hewstone from Scotland. Take a closer look here. The Scottish surname Hewstone and its variants of Huston and Houston, where it states here as well, Hewstone is derived from the trade of stonemasons, literally a hewer of stone. A family story of Hewstones who were stonemasons in the early 1900s. So it's very clear where the name Houston, as far as Houston, Texas is concerned. And some will say, no, it's named after Sam Houston. It's not after Freemasonry. Well, take a look here. Sam Houston, one of the reasons he was propped up, because he was a Mason. Sam Houston, a former senator and governor of the state of Texas. And I find it interesting as well, it says pioneer of a nation. In pioneer, like I showed before with Lawrence Cross, in pioneer during this TV show, and pioneer, of course, being 33. So basically, 33 of a nation. And the reason certain celebrities, as you see here, with Whitney Houston doing the obvious devil horns, and her whole supposed death, nothing but a hoax, just like her daughter, supposedly both drowned in a bathtub. What all comes down to, they all have masters, and when they sign their contracts, they just do what they're told. And I found this interesting as well. Supposedly, she passed away at the Beverly Hilton Hotel. In Hilton, after Conrad Hilton, the founder of the Hilton Hotels, 33. Unbelievable. Now you know why people like Paris Hilton gets propped up, and you see as well the as above, so below in this photo. And also with Kim Kardashian, her father, Robert Kardashian, he took part in that debacle O.J. Simpson case, supposedly being robbed of a $33,000 necklace. Completely ridiculous how they love to put their fabricated news stories with the number 33, just like with the supposed 33,000 emails by Hillary Clinton. Nothing more than a fabrication when it comes to the whole Benghazi scandal as well. Nothing but a distraction, nothing more than divide and conquer. Now, again, getting back on topic with Houston and the Houston Space Center. And you see the space with the, of course, the dual pentagrams, and you see center with the dual slashes, 3 slashes for 33. And like I mentioned earlier, Houston is for Hewstone, hewers of stone. And I should mention as well, this A in space is basically a broken pentagram, not a complete pentagram. Just another photo, another image of the same with the fake phony ball of earth in the back. And also, being in Houston, this space center is called the Johnson Space Center. Okay, this is after, of course, Lyndon Johnson, with, like I mentioned earlier, Johnson being a 33 name. So, basically, 33 Space Center. Okay, let's take a look here as well. When it comes to the vector symbol or chevron, like I mentioned earlier. And this is the official explanation from NASA. Okay, when it comes down to it, all the symbolisms are explained in here in detail. The circular orbit around the agency's name represents space travel, in Wikipedia on NASA insignia as that the red chevron is the alternate shape of the constellation. So it's a red chevron. Okay, it's also, like I mentioned earlier, your 33 for chevron, just like the gas station. As I mentioned earlier, the chevron is 33, two 33s, dual 33s, in the red and blue for purple for royalty. Everything is coded in signs and symbols, obviously, in society. And talking about NASA and that number 33 once again, with the so-called astronauts never been in space, the supposed record to be on the moon is 33 hours. And the number 33 is not only about lives, it's a ritualistic as well, just like with 9/11. Okay, let's take a look here as well when it comes to what supposedly astronauts took to the moon. And I call them astronauts because they've never been in space, with Tang. Supposedly brought Tang because it's orange for 33. Now, like I mentioned earlier, Johnson Space Center, and Johnson being 33. You also have Kennedy Space Center as well, Cape Canaveral, Florida. Let's take a look here at Bill Clinton at a very young age with Kennedy. One thing to remember is Bill Clinton was born Bill Blythe. And I'm not even believing that. That's the official story. More than likely a son of a Rockefeller for him to make it in this position. And Clinton, the reason his name was changed from Bill Blythe to Clinton, because of course, Clinton, you're going to have your 33 name. Now, to move along here, when it comes to, again, Kennedy Space Center, named after JFK, as I shown here. Now, the whole entire debacle with the supposed assassination, which I've covered many, many times over the years, which was nothing more than a hoax. It's all by the numbers. Supposedly taking place November 22nd, November, the 11th month of the year. You get your 11 and 22 for 33. Take a look here as well. With, again, Kennedy being a 33 name. And you have the supposed assassin being Lee Harvey Oswald. But first and last name, Lee Oswald, being a 33 name. Okay? Now take a look here with Dallas, Texas. Tap it in Dallas, Texas. And of course with JFK, John F. Kennedy. Like I shown this photo with Clinton being 33. Kennedy's being 33. So you have dual 33s right here in front of you with Clinton and Kennedy. This is how far they go. Unbelievable. Now let's take a look here. Who filmed all this? Supposedly went down in Dallas, Texas on a 33, Dallas, Texas, and a 33 date. It was all recorded by a 33rd degree Mason with Abraham Zapruder. Now, for those that are new to this, I'm going to show this very brief clip. I have a whole video series. Actually, I've done many videos on this complete hoax, this complete fabrication. Let's take a quick look at it, where you see it's nothing more than a production, nothing more than a splice. They did several takes on this scene. Let's take a look, where the caravan basically comes down the street, and you don't see the limo. Then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, there comes a limo. It appears out of nowhere. Now let's take a look here, talking about Kennedy Space Center at Cape Canaveral, Florida, as a propeller plane passes by. And what are we going to see here on the runway for, again, Kennedy Space Center, with Kennedy being 33? And just take a look here as we look at the runway. What runway is this? With all these supposed space shuttles coming for a landing on runway 33. Let's continue on here. And you'll see the top view of, again, Kennedy Parkway 33. Now, this is a one runway, but each end has its own separate number, with 33 and 15. Why the 15 and 33? With the Germanic runic wheel, the number 15 being a cross. So basically, Christ was crucified at the age of 33, and the cross being the 15. So it's all coded by the numbers. Everything is by the numbers. Okay, let's take a look here as well when it comes to Houston once again. And you see this Masonic Lodge in Houston, Texas. Let's take a look here. Again, at more signs and symbols in front of this one lodge. And you see the obvious square and compass with the G for 33. You see the judge's mallet. And this represents judging and ruling, and basically playing God. The inverted pentagram. One thing I found very interesting here is the skull and bones on the bottom of this double cross. And of course, the reference of the double cross. Let's get a closer look here. You can clearly see the skull and bones and the double cross. Everybody knows what the double cross means. To deceive or betray. A betrayal of someone with whom one is supposedly cooperating. Okay, this is what it comes down to. Those in these Masonic lodges, basically they are deceived. Lower level Masons are deceived. They don't know what top level Masons are doing. Now let's take a look here again when it comes to signs and symbols. When it comes to the skull and bones. Of course, all about Masonry. The 322, just like in London with that supposed attack. Take a look here at Glenn Beck wearing the skull and bones in plain sight with his supposed wife. Again, the skull and bones. And of course, with the name Glenn Beck, no surprise with the 33 name now. With company logos, how they love to put their signs and symbols for millions upon millions of people, and they have no idea. Again, the double cross with all these crackers, and how basically Masonry is all over the place, right in plain sight, with the also MAM for Made in America in the pyramid and the pentagram within the pyramid. Closer look at Oreo, of course, Oreo black and white for duality. And also the actual design of the Oreo cookie. And they put the double cross and all these, basically the iron cross, just like I showed earlier with Adolf Hitler. And also just like the Arco logo for the gas company. Just like you see here, the basically 2D pyramid, the top view or the sky view of a pyramid. As you can see here, the top view of a pyramid, one and the same. And of course, all the other symbols when it comes to Masonry, and the double cross, and again, the iron cross as well. Now, Nabisco itself, very interesting with the factory here. And you have the Nabisco 3 times. Why is it here 3 times? The dual crosses, dual double crosses. Nabisco being 22. So you get your 22, your 44, you get your 66. Once again, for your, just like your Grand Sovereign Commander, for your 66 with the 2 33s. And getting back to the hexagram, and basically how you break it all down with the 6-sided, with the star, and the hexagon in the middle, 6-sided. And the 6 triangles as well. With the Israeli flag once again. The 6 points, 6 mini triangles, and the 6 hexagons. And again, this is the Synagogue of Satan right here. Flying their flag. And the connection with Rome and Satanism for all to see. And if people can't see, they're working as a committee. It's very obvious. They just have different branches all working as one. Taking a look here inside a Masonic lodge during this Masonic ritual, and the dual hexagrams, the 2 pillars as well. Take a look here at Bonn, Germany, at this airport. I mean, Freemasonry with their signs and symbols are everywhere, but very few have this top view with the dual, again, hexagrams, and very Masonic looking construction, I should say. And to say they're obsessed with signs and symbols is an understatement. This is what they're all about. Just going back in time, showing this is nothing new. With this police officer, the sheriff, and again, you have the hexagram, the 2 pyramids intertwined as above, so below. And also, as I mentioned before, police being 33, so very plain to see. And English being the international language of choice for a reason, with its numerology that they use. And you go to the Middle East, even though they have their own language, of course, they still have police in the international language of English. And also, of course, you notice the patch on each side. There are your 3 and 3 for 33 in this case. And like I mentioned earlier, the G being a 33. Take a look at this police pin. With, again, police being 33 and the G being 33, your 66. Of course, all coded. Now take a look at these Chicago police officers, and of course the checkerboard band around the hats, and the white gloves for Freemasonry. Just like these M&M characters, M and M turn the 2 M sideways. You have your 33, and they're of course wearing the Masonic gloves as well. Take a look here, where you have the police fraternity, the fraternity order of police. Very Masonic with the all-seeing eye, the Masonic handshake. All the signs and symbols are there. And the colors. You know, this is one thing that'll pass by a lot of people, is the blue and gold. Take a look here when it comes to blue and gold combined. 33. Very clever how they operate. And here you see Donald Trump with the Fraternal Order of the Police. And the topic of Trump being a Mason, I made videos years ago on that fact. And there's nothing new under the sun when it comes to Trump doing the diamond sign, just like Adolf Hitler. People that make videos claiming Hitler was a hero, it's 100% disinfo. The world's a stage. If Hitler was not a puppet, the Axis, including Italy, Japan, other countries, you're going to tell me they're not part of the world stage? They absolutely are. Okay, all of them are. This is what you call the supposed opposition, when it's nothing more than the controlled opposition. Let's take a look at the connection with Hitler and the Vatican. See here Hitler with these cardinals. You see these Nazis with these Catholic priests. You see Pope Benedict, a former Nazi youth. This is not a conspiracy theory, it's a conspiracy fact. How they're one and the same. Even the mainstream media doesn't deny the connection with the Pope's Nazi past. And here he is right here. It's more of the same. Very clear. Now, the Nazi salute, so-called Nazi salute, is nothing more than the Roman salute. Okay, going back in time here, you also see the Masonic eagle or phoenix on Benito Mussolini's hat. Let's get a closer look here at Hitler. And again, you see the Iron Cross, which is nothing more than a hidden 2D pyramid. And the 8-pointed star as well. And how Masons love to invert things, taking the ancient peace sign and turning it to something that is evil. And again, talking about the Iron Cross, like I showed earlier, nothing more than a 2D pyramid when it comes down to it. And Adolf Hitler, here you see the building in the back. I believe this is a church, and you see the pyramid structure, almost like the all-seeing eye within the pyramid. And you see Hillary Clinton here, wearing the orange, doing the Nazi salute. How they love to mock. They don't give a damn about their followers. They don't care about us, like the Michael Jackson song was. He did not write that song. That was a form of mockery when he sung that song. All they really want to say is they don't really care about us. But when he was a sellout himself, like I mentioned, Clinton being 33, just like Orange being 33, you're dual 33s in plain sight. Now, I found this interesting too with the Godfather movie. Look at this one Time article. I was looking at the scene here with the oranges. And of course, it's not just there for no reason whatsoever. Now, the concept designer of this movie, let's look at what he has to say here. His name is Dean Tavares, and he states, oranges were simply another careful chosen complement to our otherwise somberly dressed sets. We knew this film wasn't going to be about bright colors, and orange makes a nice contrast. Now, this is what I find interesting. This is, again, a direct quote from him. Said Tavares, I don't remember anybody saying, hey, I like oranges as a symbolic message. Again, how they love to mock, and this is absolutely 100% symbolic for 33. Again, talking about the so-called Adolf Hitler salute, like I showed with Hillary Clinton and Adolf Hitler himself. And again, it's more or less the Roman salute. And here you have George Bush, and many other politicians have done this, including Obama and many others, with the mockery of the salute itself, the Roman salute or Nazi salute, whatever you want to call it. Now, with the Pledge of Allegiance, of course, where you hold your hand over your heart, before that, they did what was called the flag salute in the early 1900s. Take a look here. This is in an American classroom, and look what they're doing. The flag salute. And here's your U.S. flag. And once, on the world stage, they said, we're going to have the Romans take it back, and we're going to get rid of the students in the American classrooms, stop doing the Roman salute, and put their hand over their heart. But again, I find this very interesting throughout history and what takes place, which is not talked about, of course, in the media. Now, getting back to Trump, of course, years ago I covered him as being a Freemason well before it was discussed by many online. Pointing this out with this one particular video, and it was exactly 3 minutes 11 seconds, 3 times 11 being 33. And take a look here again at Tony Blair doing the same Masonic hand sign. Looks like this female is looking down towards the hand itself. Getting back to the police. I mentioned the police earlier. Now, more symbolism when it comes to the sheriff and the 9/11. Like I mentioned earlier, the 9/11 all has to do with Revelation 9/11 with Apollo. Everything's occultic in plain sight in this world. And the K9 unit, of course, referring to the dog, but in reality, the K9, with K being the 11th letter in the alphabet, basically you have your 9/11 reverse. So you have your 9/11 twice. And of course, the hexagram symbolism on this sheriff's SUV. Now moving along here, again, talking about the KKK being 33. And the reason you have like stores like Kmart, K being 11, again, it's basically the Twin Towers or duality symbolism in plain sight. So what the masses see and what the so-called elite see are two different things. And those who are awake can see this as well. Very few are awake and know about this. And people talk about, oh, numbers don't mean anything. Yes, there are some that go overboard with the numbers. The numbers are there, but some go completely overboard, making connections that aren't there. But these are definite, without a shadow of a doubt, connections. Now, getting back to the very beginning of the video, when it comes to the Scottish Rite of Freemasonry, let's take a look here. Basically, 9/11 was nothing more than a ritual. Let's take a look here at Ground Zero on the anniversary. Well, you have a parade of people going around the eye symbolism. Let's take a look here.
Being down here now, as different as it looks, I still have those visuals, those images in my mind, in my head.
We're on, as a nation, officially
Now, the suicide
Of course, the
bombers,
all-seeing eye here as well.
It happens in Israel on a daily
CBS
basis. Those are the things
forming
we
the
have
eye.
to be careful of. Now we have
You're going to hear something play at the
You
end.
expect
Now,
suicide
people have no
bombing
idea what it's
struck
all
the
about.
North
Here's your
Tower
CBS
of the
eye.
World Trade Center 1 year
I'm
ago.
going to stop right here. And again, at the very end here, you're going to hear something that people do not catch on. And of course, it has all to do with Masonry. Let's continue on.
The anniversary, in what is expected to be, we tell you that the anniversary
Scottish
ceremony will
bagpipes.
also include several moments of silence, marking the times that the hijacked jets hit the place roses on the site for a flower arrangement that will...
Very subtle. But again, the all-seeing eye, you see it here twice. And also, I find it interesting with live. With live being evil in reverse. Just so happens with Satanism, they love to do things in opposites. With the law of reversal, learning how to write backwards, walk backwards, listen to phonographic records in reverse, speaking backwards, learn how to read backwards. They say the Lord's Prayer backwards in the Satanic Church. Just like when you see concepts like Michael Jackson's backslide, which was given to him. Many so-called artists did it well before Michael Jackson. The backslide, or backsliding referring to going against Christ, to backslide. Just like Oprah Winfrey and Harpo Studios, Oprah and Harpo, basically the law of reversal as well. Now, talking about, like I mentioned earlier, this world and those that own and control it, working as a committee. And it's been 300 years since the first Grand Masonic Lodge in London. The Committee of 300, aka the Olympians. Let's look at this pyramid symbol here with how the structure works. At the very top, it's the Committee of 300. And take a look how it all breaks down. You look at all these groups. They're all working together as one. The Committee of 300. It reminds me of the movie 300 itself, with the 300 soldiers. And the same creators of the movie 300 created the movie Sin City. Let's take a look here, as I shown before in a previous video, which I find very interesting what is said here. Take a listen.
Power don't come from a badge or a gun. Power comes from lying. Lying big and getting the whole damn world to play along with you.
That's what they're all about. That's how the elite operate. Just like with the O.J. Simpson case from years ago. I'm not talking about this supposed robbery, which is a hoax as well. I'm talking about the original case back in the 90s, when many people were trying to figure out if O.J. did it or if O.J. was framed. Millions upon millions of people, not only the U.S., throughout the world, were trying to figure out it was nothing more than a fabrication. So those that believe the news, and even those so-called conspiracy theorists, were both wrong. It was nothing more than a hoax, with the world being nothing more than a stage. Like I mentioned so many times, also, with this quote again from a Mason. No hero whatsoever, but they give us a lot of truth as well. Let's take a look here. To get back to it, with Noam Chomsky, of course, no hero being one of them. The world is a very puzzling place. If you're not willing to be puzzled, you just become a replica of someone else's mind. And that's how people are. They want to basically have this group think. They don't want to think as individuals. If you do, you'll be considered an outcast, a black sheep, and people spend their whole entire lives trying to be liked and accepted. You can't go there. So again, that's why so many people cannot go where the truth is. Stuck on that lie system for that very reason. They don't want to be considered an outcast. And also, again, no hero when it comes to FBI man. First FBI man, J. Edgar Hoover, the individual's handicapped by coming face to face with a conspiracy so monstrous he cannot believe it exists. And that's what it all comes down to. Again, where people are just handicapped. They cannot go where the truth is. And now, getting back to the very beginning of this presentation, where I mentioned Darren Osborne and the license plates with this hoax and the 33 numerology, and at the courthouse itself in Westminster, and this police vehicle as well with the 33 plate. They're just basically telling you they're behind it all for those that have eyes to see. Now, I'm going to play a previous video again, connecting more dots specifically when it comes to these coded license plates. They are everywhere with all these events, specifically when it comes to the so-called London Bridge attack, which this video, my previous video, was all about. Take a look. Another obvious psychological operation. You know, it gets to be more and more obvious. And of course, those that are stuck in the lie system, they're never going to get it. They're going to believe all the lies. And again, with all these hoaxes, all these psyops, it's by the numbers. Terror attack on London Bridge leaves 6 dead. Police shoot 3. This all happened, of course, yesterday on June the 3rd, or 6/3. Again, by the numbers. With these crisis actors. Take a look at this child here, the faces. They can't even look at, this woman can't even look at the camera. She's embarrassed for herself. This guy has no shame. And this guy with the big smile on his face as he holds his child. Let's get a little bit of a close-up of this goon in the back with the glasses. Who's this, Clark Kent? Look at that smile on his face. Think he's concerned for the well-being of his daughter? Of course not. And of course, people are going to rationalize this. Those that believe the lies that are fed to them through the media. It's nothing new. Like I showed before, going back to 322. Of course, Skull and Bones with the hoax, the false flag, again in London. And take a look here at this one rescue worker. So-called rescue worker, more like a piece of garbage. Look at his face. Do you think he's really, traumatized with what's supposedly taking place? Absolutely not. And again, people are going to rationalize this all they want. Now let's take a look here. Some more photos. This guy wearing his flip-flops. People just standing around. Nothing going on. Nothing but a drill. This guy's on his phone. Probably playing Pokemon Go. Give me a break. Now, people don't consider this. When you see, people running, and the cameraman, the photographer, taking a photo, she's concerned. See her holding her friend's hand like she's jogging or running because she's scared for her life. But the cameraman, obviously the photographer, is not concerned for his. Nobody considers this. Okay, with these hoaxes, there's no danger, and the person taking this photo knows it. Okay, just like I've shown before many times, they always have the transgender crisis actors. Well, this one transgender cop. Look at this. Look how tall this thing is. Give me a break again. Now, the numbers are always going to be there like I showed earlier. This is how the psychopaths that own and control this world operate. And you're going to see a lot of number 33s when it comes to this hoax once again. And the coded license plate. BH66HHT. Okay? 33. It's like when you play a video game, they always have their little Easter eggs all over the place. Same exact thing here with these psychopaths. And obviously the photographers that are employed to take these photos. Just take a look here at this one police Looks like an SUV. Getting a little bit of a close-up. BX17DZN. There you go again. And you almost have the what looks like a pyramid with the all-seeing eye and little mini pyramid above the 33 coded license plate. So many coded license plates as I covered in the past, but this one is completely ridiculous. It's non-stop. Here's another one. With the, they always have their little mockery and plain sight as well. See London by night, and you see the little dogs all around here. It says here, night move, find your happy, and you see the license plate underneath. You see the first two digits being a 33, but your LG52YHA. Of course, you're gonna have your 33. How does this happen? People that want to believe this is all just a coincidence? Absolutely not. Not your only case. Here's another shot here. Kind of difficult to see, but definitely, they take a shot of this, again, another SUV police vehicle. And it's what you see here. You get a little bit of a close-up. It is LJ64EZX. How does this happen again? Completely ridiculous. This is nothing new, like I pointed out on 322. As you have the shot of Big Ben. Everybody's looking at Big Ben. And you have a London ambulance. Taking a closer look. You have the LB65XLZ. Same thing. Completely ridiculous. They're telling you, the psychopaths, these Masons, they're telling you they're behind all of these psychological operations. They know the masses are completely brain dead, completely brainwashed, petrified with fear. And while you're petrified with fear, they mock you. And here's your supposed rescue helicopter for no one that died that day. Nothing but a drill passed off as real. Once again for the gullible masses. And you see, of course, the London Freemasons and the, of course, square and compass all in plain sight. And another interesting shot, I found this on Daily Fail, better known as Daily Mail. You have your dual police on the back of this one vehicle as well. Because, of course, they own and control the police being 33 numerology. One thing I'm going to point out as well, if anybody out there that lives in London, England, comes on my channel and tries to tell me, what are you talking about? I know someone that died there. No, you don't. Nobody died. Nobody got hurt. You try to come into my channel like you're the voice of reason. Like you know someone that died supposedly. You're nothing but the voice of ignorance. You saw nothing. I'm all the way here in the United States. And I can tell you it's nothing but a hoax. You live in the same city. You can't even see the obvious, what's right in front of you. And sure, you might have saw police vehicles. You might have saw rescue workers, so-called rescue workers. That doesn't mean anybody died. That doesn't mean anybody got hurt. Just looking at a drill once again. Now to continue on, just to show they're playing the same tricks over and over again on the masses. This supposed car ramming in Israel, this truck ramming with these Israeli soldiers. Take a look here at this Israeli soldier laughing his butt off. Supposedly one of his fellow soldiers was supposedly killed. Okay, you have the same exact thing. Just so happens a photographer as well with this one ambulance. Take a closer look. You're going to get your number 33 once again. All about order out of chaos. So ridiculous. But again, people do not look into details or are easily deceived. Just like here in the United States with Dylan Roof, supposedly killing 9 black people in this church in Charleston, South Carolina. Just another fake fabricated news story to divide the masses again. And he was supposedly indicted for 33 charges. Nothing but an actor, of course. And the same exact thing with the coded license plate. Just so up in this photo, wearing the black and white, of course with masonry, and right behind him the license plate. 44768V. Tell me this is just a coincidence. No way. Absolutely not. And the mockery never ends. Just like Robbie Parker in Newtown.
Robbie Parker, I assume he's going to come out to the microphones now and make a statement. Looks like the family is there and they're getting ready to
Comes out laughing and smiling.
So we'll listen in.
Supposedly his 6-year-old daughter was slaughtered the day before. And he has this big smile on his face. Okay? Now, talking about coincidence theorists, Robbie Parker, the reason they chose this actor for this hoax, Robbie being 33, Parker being 33, and of course, this all supposedly went down in Newtown, Connecticut. Of course, your Newtown is your 33 as well. For those that don't understand these numerology calculators that I use, there's the Chaldean, there's Pythagorean. Mostly, it's Pythagorean being used. You can do it by, basically shorthand and figure it out all for yourself. But again, it's very obvious with all these hoaxes, all these psyops. It's getting to be, very redundant for me to cover this. But for the record, I do it. Just like the media covers all their fake fabricated stories, I gotta expose them for what they are. I'm not gonna let this, any of these slip by and just, let them go through, especially when it's one of these so-called major events. And again, I said it a million times. You cannot fake real, and there's absolutely nothing real about this. With these people, bunch of goons standing around, this woman here looking right at the camera, and the constant smiling. And I know for a fact they do this as a form of mockery. These people taking the photos, they don't need to publish this. They see the smile, but they put it out there. It's not enough for them to not only lie and deceive the masses. While they do it, they have to mock. And just like I showed Robbie Parker coming out, basically laughing his butt off as a form of mockery, don't think for a second this was by accident. They wanted this out there. They love this debate. They want the people that believe the news and the so-called conspiracy theorists also to have a debate. It's another form of divide and conquer, again, with the so-called conspiracy theorists going against those that believe what's put out in the media. They divide us in every which way possible. Black versus white, Muslim versus Christian, job class, blue collar versus white collar, you name it. Any which way to divide us. And this is how the ruling elite continue to rule. Now, talking about mockery, this is, of course, going back to 2012. Now, take a look here. The audio quality is very bad here, but I want to show this for reference with what supposedly went down yesterday in London. Take a look at this crisis act. You can't really hear too much. It's really bad audio, but the video itself says a lot with his smiling, basically duping, and again, nothing more than mockery.
And I imagine there were plenty of people around you, and yourself, you described yourself being a state of shock now.
Same exact thing. Talking about children, being in danger. This guy's laughing his butt off. Again, they make it too obvious. And I can't say it enough. People, when are they going to wake up? And sadly, most people never will. Most people don't have the time to look into things like this. And they just basically, they don't want to go down the path of, I have to do research and look into these things myself. I'm too busy with my slave job, working 9 to 5, coming home, just enough time to cook dinner, watch a little TV and go to sleep and go back to my slave job the next day. I don't have time to look into things like this. I just want to turn on the news and believe everything they're saying is true. Okay, I don't want to go down the path of having to do research, and my life is too complicated as it is. And they don't want to look at and see the obvious with these fake, phony crisis actors all over the place. And of course, nobody wants to be labeled a conspiracy theorist as well. What it all comes down to is you people are weak. You people have been completely manipulated and mind control. I have no time for you, so don't bother coming to my channel telling me you know someone that supposedly, again, died in London. Nobody died, nobody got hurt, period. Nothing but a hoax, just like all these headline news stories. The real terrorists are the ones that own and control the media, and the ones that own and control your mind.
What you heard, the channels with 3 everything's a lie, and that's a fact. Life is a lemon, and I want my money back. There are times when all the world is clear. The questions run too deep for such a simple mind. I'm just living out the American dream, and I just realized that nothing is what it seems.